Fridays with Frank, with our co-host Paul Hollis, author of the Hollow Man series, owner of Hollow Man Publishing, and Frank Fiore, host of Fridays with Frank. Frank, how are you? And anytime we talk military, it excites you, right, Frank? Because you're former military, right?
Yeah, that's correct. And also, I am a World War II military buff. So, yeah.
All right. So my guest today is going to talk about fighting with spirit. I didn't get to the backstory enough in the interview when you're working and doing another tour. Daniel Schneider joins, and people that have been watching my live stream all day. Well, we're going to really talk fighting with spirit today. Daniel, thanks for stopping by. My first question is, how are you involved in the project? How did you get started the project? And I'll let Frank and Paul start asking questions.
Sure, absolutely. First of all, it's great to be here. Appreciate you guys. Appreciate you helping us getting the word out about the movie, Fighting Spirit, A Combat Chaplain's Journey. We're very excited about this movie, which hits theaters November 8th. That's this Veterans Day. So perfect timing for the movie to come out to honor the veterans. So you asked a question of how did I get involved? So I'm the producer of the film. I produced this movie with Chris Pratt, who's our executive producer,
Yeah.
Rich Hull, who's also our director, and Justin Roberts is the co-director. And then, of course, Paulus Productions, who have executive producers and basically finance the project along with the U.S. military. So it was a big group of people. I was brought into it via Rich Hull, the director, and one of my producing partners. Rich is a board member at Paulus Productions, and Paulus is a media fund that finances projects to kind of put good out into the world. And this is one of the things they wanted to do to put good in the world. So think of them like a participant. They make things that make the world a better place. And they've been around for 60 years. They've won every award under the sun, tons of Emmys. They even created an award called the Humanitas Prize. So a great group of guys and a great opportunity to make a wonderful documentary film.
All right. So go ahead, Frank, with your first question.
So, what particular conflict are you covering in this movie?
Actually, almost all of them. So
Oh,
hopefully you'll have a chance to check out the film next weekend when it comes out. So it's about combat military chaplains, and the combat military chaplain is a very specific type of chaplain. That's number one, the chaplains cover all faiths. So there are rabbi chaplains, there are Buddhist chaplains, there are Catholic chaplains, so on and so forth. But they've been around, quite frankly, since the day of George Washington. And so they've always been a part of the US military. So this movie, though, it's a journey about Justin Roberts, the co-director, his process after Afghanistan and having served with the Army. But it sort of surveys many of the major conflicts of our American forces around the world from the beginning to today. So it does tend to have a lot of World War II, a little bit of Vietnam, certainly a lot of Afghanistan and more recent conflicts, but it touches many, many different battles.
Yeah.
okay.
Wow. And the whole thing you got to learn about from chaplains is amazing. Them on the front line in so many ways, right?
Well, I think that's sort of the core of the entire movie, which is this idea of like, who is this person? Who is this hero that would go into war, into conflict, into a war zone in their uniform with the rest of the soldiers with no weapon? And that's just such an interesting person. And that can't just be a job. That has to be more than a job. That has to be a calling. And that's something that we explore in the movie.
Well, why don't you let's pick two images or two characters, and you tell me what you think they are. You got Father Duffy in World War One, and then you've got in the priest in MASH, Father, I forget his name again. Anyway, those two. Do you think they make good iconic images of the type of people you were interviewing or trying to cover with this documentary?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I have to say with MASH, I don't know it as well. I've seen it, but when I was a kid, when MASH would come on, it was like, I think that was my cue that I was supposed to be going to bed. But I like the movie, but the television show was always late for me. But with Father Duffy, first of all, I have a picture of myself standing next to Father Duffy's statue near 42nd Street from a month ago. So he looms large. Father Duffy was someone that we originally told the story and was a part of the movie and didn't quite make it to the finish line as far as editing goes. As you can imagine, there's lots of different incredibly heroic, unbelievable chaplains that we wanted to cover. But we just Emil Capon, who is potentially the next Catholic saint, becomes one of the centerpiece chaplains that we cover. And so there was a bit of time that needed to be dedicated to him. And one of the great stories from the movie is that we started making the movie and we were always going to focus on Father Capon. But during the process of making the movie, the remains of Father Capon were found 70 years later after he died in the Korean conflict. And so we to go back to your question, yeah, Father Duffy's great, and we wanted to tell a story, just didn't have the space. But there's so many incredible ones like Father Duffy's, and different in their own way. We're
Right.
talking guys from the Civil War, guys from World War One, all sorts of, and women too, by the way.
Now, Chris Pratt getting involved in this project. How did this happen?
So I would say ultimately it happened through the power of the movie itself. So we brought Chris on in the post-production process. Generally speaking, with documentaries, you're looking to bring on partners that have a name beyond your own, worldwide names to help you from a business standpoint and from a just get the word out standpoint. And so we showed Chris and his management team and his representatives the movie, and they came back with tears and this immediate desire, excuse me, to be involved in the project. So it was my idea to bring it to Chris, and I'm quite friendly with his agent, and that was the start. But the movie really brought it home.
That's called hustling, what you did.
Yes, yes.
You Daniel, that's impressive.
When
That's what I
people
always
ask what
teach
your
people.
job is as a producer, that's basically the answer. You hustle,
You gotta, and the thing is, until you get a no, you keep going.
right? Absolutely.
I've had certain celebrity interviews I've landed. It took 17, 18, 20, 40 emails to finally get the interview. And that's where you have the persistence. They don't say no, you keep going. And that's the attitude you have to have in any type of thing in life. Till there's a no, you can get your at yes. Paul, what question do you have for him?
Hi, Daniel.
So
I'm thinking about kind of a long-term effect here. I know that your movie is faith-based, of course, but I know that you have a bigger image of it having an effect on everyone. Can you talk to a little bit about that?
I would love to, and I think that one of the best ways I can talk about that is starting with myself. So you asked earlier, how did I get involved in the movie? And I told you it was with the director as a sort of producing partner and colleague of mine, Rich Hull. But what really drew me to the project was learning the fact that both the chaplains come from all different faith organizations, because I myself am Jewish. So it was a kind of my way in was to go, oh, there's also plenty of Jewish chaplains,
Hmm.
but also in the way that they deal with the soldiers, which is to say, depending, no matter what faith background they come from, they minister to all soldiers of any type of faith or no faith at all. And so for me, that's really interesting. So if you're a Catholic chaplain, you're on the battlefield with this complete smattering of soldiers who have, like I said, no faith at all or all sorts of different faiths. But you're their person. You're there in the most powerful moments of their lives. You have to be there for them. And they do that unquestioningly, unflinchingly. And so all of the preconceived notions of what religion means to anyone kind of goes out the door, but spirituality doesn't.
Yeah.
Because I think the line is something like in a foxhole,
There are no
everybody,
atheists in foxholes.
right? Everybody
It's that
believes in
far.
God in a foxhole.
Yeah, there's no there has to be some sort of thing when you're facing death.
Yeah. And so,
And
but
yeah,
I gotta just wanted to finish the thought there, which is so that covers the religious side of it. But this idea of who these heroes are and that they'll do what they do for anyone that's applicable to all people, I think is why the movie makes sense. That we're going to have this very divisive election next week, and our movie's going to come out right after. And we love the timing of this because we feel like it's an opportunity for people to kind of put all the divisiveness aside and find something that is sort of applicable to all humans on Earth. Like,
the other amazing thing of this film, one thing is it's going out in all theaters on Veterans Day. You have it in theaters, nothing, nowhere else right now.
yes,
Other
exclusively.
amazing thing is getting the military backing, the US. So how did that happen? I mean, that's something you're looking at chaplains. Man, oh, this looks more faith-based. Why would the government stay out of religion? But this is one of the things that really made Rich mentioned in the interview I did about 2 hours ago, I guess, or less than 2 hours ago. Um, that that it's involved with the U.S. military. How did that kind of develop too, that part?
So yeah, I appreciate that question, and they're a great partner. And the chief of chaplain recruitment, Brandon Moore, is a co-producer on our movie because he's been explicitly involved in the film from the beginning. So Rich, our director and a producer along with me, Rich Hull, he had a relationship with the military, and he had made another film in the past with Halle Berry about black soldiers in U.S. military conflicts through the years. So we had kind of an in there, and the military was very interested in being involved in this because of the unique nature of the topic, and because it also represented an opportunity for them to walk away with material that they can use for recruitment. So if you see the film, you will not feel like you're being recruited in any way, shape, or form. I think you'll be feeling like people are great. These guys are incredible. These guys and women are incredible heroes. But for the military, when they break it up into pieces, they have a great opportunity
Right.
to show this very moving, touching, incredible stories, footage, and storytelling that can inspire folks to join the ranks.
All right, Frank, your question, especially you're again another film person. Frank's liking this. Maybe you need to call instead of Fridays with Frank, Friday's film with Frank. But
Yeah.
Frank, go ahead and explain how Frank is doing his own. He's involved in films as well. Frank, explain, and then I'm going to get to the final question I have, where we can see the film. Okay.
My dream is to turn my books into film, and I've already done two sizzle trailers, one for Cyberkill, and another one which we're just completing now is a Western. It's about a British sleuth who follows Jack the Ripper out west and tries to capture him. But at any rate, I'm just entering into the journey now of raising capital, raising money. Uh,
Mhm.
could you what's in your mind is the one of the best tips that you could have someone and that's got his product, got their investor deck ready to go. And what is something we should keep in mind when we're out there looking for investors?
That's a really interesting question. I think that, first and foremost, it's who you know. So,
Yeah.
your average man or woman doesn't necessarily want to hear that answer, but having access to the folks in traditional Hollywood space that can make things happen is a very good place to start. But in the absence of that, because not everybody has their foot in the door, in the absence of that, I think it's um, incumbent upon you to just start making the movie. And what I mean by that is you're sort of doing what you're doing. You sounded like you created a sizzle reel. You have put information together that you can share with financiers. So you're starting to make the movie, even though in your mind, maybe you feel like this is just the very beginning, but you've begun. And so you have to start putting pieces together. So what a producer does at that point is try to put pieces together that can propel it forward. So that might be a director. So you have every right to call Ron Howard's agent to direct your movie just as much as the next guy does. But you may not get through, you may not get that call returned, but you can try. And that's how you start making the movie. So it's kind of going after every relationship you have, especially ones that have any connection to folks in Hollywood. Um, you might get a guy that you're interviewing on your talk show and you might pitch him your Jack the Ripper movie and maybe he'll get excited about it.
That's right. That's what we've been trying to do. And I've not been doing that on purpose. I'm just booking guests on Fridays with Frank. But
Yeah.
ultimately, that's what makes me valuable as a podcaster and agency is I can get you in front of anybody if you're a client of mine. That's the bottom line. And it's the truth. You never know who you're going to talk to. I'm very impressed. Now, where can we see the film, Daniel? I mean, first of all, getting Chris Pratt. There you go. I mean, that's huge. Getting the U.S. military. So you really have worked so hard, and finally your baby's going to be out on November 8th. Where are select theaters? Which theaters are going to be?
Yeah, so it's exclusively in theaters, meaning you can't wait and sit back and wait on your couch for it to show up on your Netflix, at least at this moment. So right now, exclusively in theaters, opening November 8th, this Veterans Day, so next weekend. And we are not closed on all of our theaters around the country, but it's going to be in about 20 markets spread throughout the country. So what I would do is if I was anybody watching, listening to your show, I would head to fightingspiritfilm.com. And on there, there's a theater locator that's going to be updated by Monday with all of the theaters. And in the meantime, if they go there and they're like, I'm not going to remember this, they can put their email in, and then we'll find them as soon as the theaters are ready and reach out to them with all the options.
Well, thanks, Dan. Appreciate it, sir. All right.
Yeah.
That was a special simulcast of the Neil Haley Show. And Friday.